You know this feeling. The day has not begun yet, something inside you is already out of rhythm. A single small thought is enough to pull your entire mind downward. A tiny trigger is enough to shake the calm you are trying so hard to hold. You want to be stronger, but old reactions still emerge on their own. You want to live with more clarity, but the old habits still take control. And you know very well that this is not because of your circumstances. It is a sign of a mind that has not been appropriately trained. Most people do not fail because they lack opportunity. They fail because they carry a chaotic mind into a new year and then wonder why their life does not change. The year 2026 will not improve simply because you hope it will. It only changes when the quality of your thoughts, reactions, and choices changes. But we live in a world full of noise, the expectations of others, unnecessary conversations, endless comparisons, constant judgment, and a mind that keeps running too fast without a place to stop. When this noise surrounds you, you lose the ability to see the most important thing, the real direction of your own life. That is why Stoicism becomes necessary. Not to make you cold or detached, but to give you a mind steady enough not to be controlled by the world. Stoicism gives back three things that modern life has taken away: focus, stillness, and self-control. When these three return, you begin to reclaim the life you lost to impulsive reactions, unnecessary explanations, and expectations that no longer fit. The year 2026 becomes essential only when you choose to do something different, not by changing your environment or other people, but by seeking new motivation and by changing the place where everything truly begins: your mind. When the mind changes, everything else adjusts with it. When your thinking becomes clear, your actions have direction. When the noise begins to fade, you see yourself more accurately. When you regain control over your inner world, you stop being dragged around by circumstances as you were in years past. If this touches something inside you like the video, share it with someone who needs clarity and subscribe to Stoic Life if you want a mind that stays steady and within your control. And now, before you step into a new year with bigger expectations, it is time to return to the foundation that determines everything. Lesson 1: 2026 begins in the mind, not in your circumstances. Most people enter a new year hoping their life will change because something outside of them has changed. A new opportunity, a new relationship, a new job, a new promise. However, very few stop long enough to examine the actual starting point that determines everything. Life does not change because your circumstances shift. Life changes when the mind becomes strong enough to see clearly, choose correctly, and hold steady to what matters. If you carry the same old mindset into 2026, you will receive the same old results, regardless of how many new beginnings you attempt to create. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the mind is the one thing you can always control, and when you control it, everything else becomes lighter. Modern people often forget this. They place too much expectation on external factors, then feel disappointed when those factors do not move the way they want. However, Stoicism reminds us that the quality of your life does not come from what happens, but rather from how you respond to it. In the same situation, two different minds will lead two completely different lives. Modern psychology confirms the same truth. The brain tends to repeat familiar patterns even when those patterns cause harm. Anxiety, impulsive reactions, self-doubt, and oversensitivity to judgment are all mental loops shaped over many years. If you do not adjust them, they will continue to direct your actions in the new year. This explains why so many people feel, "I am ending up in the same place again." They are not actually going back. They have not changed the internal structure. To step into 2026 differently from the years before, you do not need new luck. You need a new mind. A mind that pauses before reacting. A mind that observes emotions before following them. a mind that knows how to distinguish what is within your control and what is not. This is not a skill you learn in one day. It is a mental discipline that you build every morning, every choice, and every moment as you refuse to let circumstances dictate your attitude. If you want to begin today, practice a straightforward step. Each morning before reaching for your phone, ask yourself one question: what is within my control today? This question draws the first straight line for your mind to hold on to. It forces you to look inward before looking outward. When the mind has an anchor, your day becomes less chaotic. When your day is less chaotic, your year becomes clearer. If this resonates, keep going. Because when you understand that a new year begins in the mind, not in your circumstances, you slowly realize another truth: real strength does not come from how you speak, but from how you stay silent. And that leads us to the next lesson, where you will see one of the most essential keys to protecting your inner stability. Lesson 2. Silence is a strategy, not a personality trait. Most people enter a new year hoping their life will change because something outside of them has changed: a new opportunity, a new relationship, a new job, a new promise. However, very few stop long enough to examine the actual starting point that determines everything. Life does not change because your circumstances shift. Life changes when the mind becomes strong enough to see clearly, choose correctly, and hold steady to what matters. If you carry the same old mindset into 2026, you will receive the same old results, regardless of how many new beginnings you attempt to create. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the mind is the one thing you can always control, and when you control it, everything else becomes lighter. Modern people often forget this. They place too much expectation on external factors, then feel disappointed when those factors do not move the way they want. However, Stoicism reminds us that the quality of your life does not come from what happens, but rather from how you respond to it. In the same situation, two different minds will lead two completely different lives. Modern psychology confirms the same truth. The brain tends to repeat familiar patterns even when those patterns cause harm. Anxiety, impulsive reactions, self-doubt, and oversensitivity to judgment are all mental loops shaped over many years. If you do not adjust them, they will continue to direct your actions in the new year. This explains why so many people feel I am ending up in the same place again. They are not actually going back. They have not changed the internal structure. To step into 2026 differently from the years before, you do not need new luck. You need a new mind. A mind that pauses before reacting. A mind that observes emotions before following them. A mind that knows how to distinguish what is within your control and what is not. This is not a skill you learn in one day. It is a mental discipline that you build every morning, every choice, and every moment as you refuse to let circumstances dictate your attitude. If you want to begin today, practice a straightforward step. Each morning, before reaching for your phone, ask yourself one question: what is within my control today? This question draws the first straight line for your mind to hold on to. It forces you to look inward before looking outward. When the mind has an anchor, your day becomes less chaotic. When your day is less chaotic, your year becomes clearer. If this resonates, keep going. Because when you understand that a new year begins in the mind, not in your circumstances, you slowly realize another truth. Real strength does not come from how you speak, but from how you stay silent. And that leads us to the next lesson, where you will see one of the most essential keys to protecting your inner stability. Lesson 3. Stop explaining. Clarity is stronger than approval. One of the quiet forces that drains a person's strength the most is the need to explain. You explain because you want others to understand you. You explain because you fear being misunderstood. You explain because you want to keep the peace. And sometimes you explain simply because you do not want someone to think wrongly about who you are. But Stoicism reminds us that the desire to be understood is an exhausting form of attachment. It makes you rely on the judgments of others to determine your own value. Epictetus said that you cannot control how other people think, so why spend so much time trying to adjust their perspective of you? When you constantly explain yourself, you place your power in someone else's hands. You turn their thoughts into the measuring stick of your own right and wrong. And when that happens, you lose the mental freedom that belongs to you. Modern psychology explains that the need to explain originates from the brain's self-protective system. Humans want to be seen in a positive light, so when they face misunderstanding or misjudgment, the brain instantly activates the urge to prove. However, this reaction repeated too often causes you to build a life around the emotions of others. You become sensitive to every opinion, easily triggered by every minor misunderstanding, and lose the ability to stand firmly in your own truth. Clarity is the real strength. A person who is clear about their values does not need to explain themselves to be trusted. A person who is clear about their boundaries does not need to justify themselves to be respected. A person who is clear about their choices does not need to persuade anyone to be accepted. When you know what you are doing and why explanations become unnecessary, clarity allows your life to become simpler, steadier, and quieter. The problem for most people is not that they explain too much. The problem is that they explain things to people who do not genuinely care or who are incapable of understanding them. You can talk for an hour and they will still see you through their own filter. That is why explaining becomes a game you cannot win. Stoicism teaches that it is better to keep your inner stability and let others hold their opinions if they wish. It does not change who you are. Try this when you feel the urge to explain. Ask yourself, will this change anything? If the answer is no, keep your clarity and move on. You do not owe anyone a detailed interpretation of who you are. You owe yourself honesty and consistency. If this resonates, keep going. Because when you stop chasing approval and begin living with clarity, you will notice something else. The true quality of your life is not shaped by other people's opinions, but by where you place your attention. And that brings us to the next lesson, a lesson that will determine how you use your inner power in 2026. Lesson 4. Your attention is your unit of energy in 2026. One thing few people realize is that the quality of their life is not determined by how much time they have, but by where they place their attention. You can have a full 8-hour day, but if your attention is scattered across meaningless conversations, constant notifications, endless comparisons, and vague anxieties, you will have no energy left for the part of your life that truly matters. Attention is your fundamental unit of energy. Whatever you give it to, that thing grows and begins to shape you. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The mind is guided by the thoughts it repeats every day." What you focus on not only drains or conserves energy, but it also determines the person you become. When you focus on what you cannot control, you become anxious. When you focus on what others think, you become fragile. When you focus on the noise outside, you lose the voice inside. And when a new year arrives, you may believe you are starting over, but in reality, you are carrying a depleted mind into a new calendar. Psychology makes it clear that the brain does not distinguish between thinking about something and investing energy into it. Each time you give something your attention, you are feeding it. If you feed your worries, they grow. If you feed on other people's opinions, your instability grows. If you feed the things you do not want, you unintentionally pull them into your life. And the opposite is also true. Attention becomes your strongest tool when you place it in the right direction. Stoicism treats attention as the gate that protects the mind. No one outside can drain you directly. Only when you open the gate and let them in do they gain the power to influence your emotions and your peace. So to control your attention is to maintain the quality of your life. You do not need to force yourself to be stronger. You need to stop feeding the things that are weakening you. A simple practice is this. Whenever you feel tired, scattered, or irritated, ask yourself, what am I feeding with my attention right now? The answer will often surprise you. You will notice that you are spending energy on things that do not deserve a place in your day. When you shift your attention from noise to what you can control, your energy changes immediately. When your energy changes, your actions change. And when your actions change, your new year has a chance to change with them. If this resonates, keep going, because once you begin protecting your attention, you will clearly see another truth. Not everyone should have access to you. And not every distance is coldness. Sometimes distance is the only thing that allows you to keep your peace in a world full of demands. And that brings us to the next lesson, where you will understand why stepping back is not a cruel act, but a necessary boundary to protect your inner strength. Lesson 5. Distance is not cruelty, it is a boundary. One of the most brutal truths of adulthood is that you cannot protect your peace if you give everyone unrestricted access to you. We grow up believing that distance is a sign of coldness, indifference, or hurting someone. But when you live long enough, you realize distance is not punishment, it is a boundary. It is about protecting the healthiest part of yourself from what has the power to wear you down. Adults do not choose distance because they stop caring. They choose distance because they finally care in the right direction. They care about the clarity of their mind, the stability of their emotions, and the quality of the life they are building. When a relationship, a habit, or an environment continuously drains your energy, you are under no obligation to stay and prove your kindness. Marcus Aurelius reminded us that you owe no one the sacrifice of abandoning yourself to maintain something that is no longer aligned with you. Modern psychology refers to this as a protective boundary of inner strength. The moment you realize that each time you allow someone to cross your limits, you are teaching them how to treat you in the future. Distance is a reminder that you also have limits. You also need space to recover, to think, to preserve the most essential parts of yourself. Not everyone deserves your closeness. Not everyone understands the fragile energy required to live a clear life. What makes many people afraid of creating distance is the fear of being misunderstood. They fear being seen as cold. They fear being labeled ungrateful. But a disciplined mind understands that other people's misunderstandings are not your responsibility. You cannot build a strong life if every step depends on how others feel about you. Distance restores your autonomy. It allows you to leave places that no longer value you and return to what nourishes you. Observe this: most of the people who exhaust you are the ones who always ask for more than they give. They are used to your availability, they are used to your understanding, and they do not realize that each time they demand more, they sacrifice a piece of their peace. Distance breaks that cycle. It does not close the door. It simply moves the door to the right place so you can breathe. In practice, you can begin with a straightforward step: reduce how often you respond to things that do not bring clarity. No declarations, no explanations, no conflict, just a recalibration of your priorities. When you reduce contact with what drains you, your inner energy shifts immediately, and you begin to feel the mental space you once believed you had lost. If this resonates, keep going, because when you learn to create distance at the right time, you open the door to something more important. You begin rebuilding your identity with intention. Distance is not only a boundary with others, it is a boundary with your old self. And a new identity is not formed from temporary feelings, but from what you repeat consistently. And that brings us to the next lesson, where you will understand why a strong identity does not come from emotion, but from the behaviors you sustain over time. Lesson 6. Identity is built through repetition, not emotion. One of the biggest mistakes modern people make is believing that who they are is determined by how they feel. When they feel confident, they think they are strong. When they feel tired, they believe they are weak. When they feel inspired, they assume they have changed. But emotions are only signals, not foundations. Your identity is not formed in the moments when you feel right. It is formed through what you repeat even on the days when you have no excitement, no motivation, and no belief in yourself. Stoicism reminds us that our actions, rather than our emotions, shape our lives. Epictetus said that you do not become a good person because you have good intentions. You become a good person because you do what is right every day, even when you do not want to. Adults do not build their identity on the promises they make to themselves in moments of inspiration. They build it on what they follow through on during the most ordinary days. Psychology reaches the same conclusion as Stoicism. The brain forms identity through repeated behavior. If you always procrastinate, the brain assumes you are a procrastinator. If you always react impulsively, the brain believes that is your nature. If you stay disciplined through even one small action a day, the brain registers you as someone capable of stability. Identity is not a gift. It is the product of repetition. And that repetition is what creates a version of you that is steadier, stronger, and more reliable than your emotions. What prevents many people from changing is not a lack of knowledge, but the fact that they only act when their emotions allow it. They wait for inspiration, motivation, and a better day. However, if your life only moves forward when your emotions are favorable, you will never achieve much. The most resilient people do not act because they feel like it. They act because they have decided that this is the person they are building. They do not wait for emotion to lead. They let discipline and repetition define their direction. Notice something simple every time you do. One good thing for yourself, even a small one. You send your brain a piece of evidence that this is who I am. And that evidence, when repeated, becomes a new identity. You can start with something small, such as waking up 10 minutes earlier, clearing your desk for 2 minutes, turning off your phone when you need to focus, or finishing one task you usually procrastinate on. These actions may seem too small to change your life, but it is precisely these actions repeated daily that build the version of you that cannot be broken. A simple practice for this lesson is to choose one action you want to turn into a habit in 2026 and do it every day regardless of mood. Nothing big, just one action, consistent, small, repeated. That is how identity is built. Not through desire, not through emotion, but through the evidence you give yourself each day. If this resonates, keep going. Because when you understand that identity is built through repetition, you will see another truth clearly. Discipline does not need to be loud. Proper discipline is what you practice in silence with no audience, no praise, no applause. And it is this silence that makes you unbreakable in the years ahead. And that brings us to the next lesson, where you will see the real power of an inner strength that does not need to be displayed. Lesson 7. Silent discipline is what makes you unbreakable. There is a kind of strength that loud people never reach. It is the strength of quiet consistency. No showing off, no announcing, no sharing every step to seek approval. This strength is not born from bursts of inspiration. It is built on the days when you do not want to act, but you act anyway. On the mornings when you wake with a heavy mind, but still follow your routine. The small choices repeated long enough to become the backbone of who you are. Stoicism has always treated discipline as the foundation of freedom. Marcus Aurelius did not become steady through eloquence, but through his ability to govern himself before governing anything else. Epictetus called it the invisible practice the things you do when no one is watching. Silent discipline is what creates the stability that the outside world cannot break. It is the shield against chaos, inconsistency, and the triggers that pull the mind off its own path. Modern psychology suggests that actions repeated in the absence of inspiration are the ones that truly create lasting change. When you act without depending on emotion, you send your brain a powerful signal. I am someone who can lead myself. Over time, this signal builds a positive feedback loop. The more you stay disciplined, the more you trust yourself. The more you trust yourself, the easier it becomes to remain disciplined. This is the root of an inner strength that cannot be broken. What is remarkable is that silent discipline is never loud. Those who genuinely have discipline do not talk about it. They do not announce that they are changing. They do not post their effort online for recognition. They simply quietly follow through consistently in every small behavior, every choice, every step. And that is what creates the difference. When you work in silence, you eliminate the noise of comparison. When your discipline is built inside, others cannot touch it. Silent discipline belongs to you and only you. Look at the truly resilient people. They do not promise, they do not boast, they do not explain. They act, steady, quiet, persistent enough that even they sometimes forget how far they have come. And then one day, others look at them and call them disciplined. But they know it did not come from innate talent. It came from all the days they chose to keep going without anyone pushing them or watching them. If you want to begin building silent discipline for 2026, start with something simple. Choose one action you will do every day, regardless of your mood. It does not matter if the action is big or small. What matters is that you do it without anyone knowing and without anyone reminding you. One silent action each day is the first brick in becoming someone who cannot be broken. If this resonates, keep going, because when you look back at the entire journey from controlling the mind to intentional silence, to clarity, to protecting your attention, to setting distance, to building identity through repetition, you will notice that everything leads to one point. Every change you make in 2026 begins where you first started in this video, the quality of your mind in the first moments of the day. And that is why this circle closes naturally. Silent discipline brings you back to what seems simple, but determines your entire new year, the way you begin your mind each day. The strength of a year built from within. When you finish all 7 lessons, you will see that none of them exist on their own. They connect into a system of inner strength, a mental foundation you can rely on throughout the entire year of 2026. Each lesson is not a trick or a motivational slogan. They are operating principles. Principles a mature mind needs to stay clear in a world full of noise. You begin by returning to the only place where you have absolute control, your own mind. You understand that no new year can change you. Only the way you operate inside can pull your life in the direction you choose. From there, you learn to see silence as a strategy, not to detach from the world, but to stop wasting energy on meaningless reactions. Then you face one of the most brutal truths: you do not need to explain yourself to anyone to live by your own standards. Clarity is stronger than approval. Stillness is stronger than justification. From that point, you understand more deeply the most precious unit of energy you have in 2026, your attention. You cannot build a high-quality life if every day you lose your attention to things that add no value. You learn how to walk away when needed. Distance is not coldness, but a boundary that protects what you are building. When you know your boundaries, you do not need to defend yourself with words. You separate yourself from what weakens you, and then you reach the lesson that every truly mature person understands: identity is not something that is born. It is built through repetition, not emotion, not inspiration, not sudden flashes of intensity, but through small behaviors repeated long enough to become the core of who you are. All of this eventually brings you to silent discipline, the kind of discipline that does not brag, does not seek attention, does not need anyone's approval. The discipline you can lean on even in your worst days. This is the foundation that makes you unbreakable, not by circumstances, not by rejection, not by doubt, not by what others think of you. When the 7 lessons connect, you see something clearly. You do not need to make your life loud to change it. You need to make it consistent. You do not need to prove that you are improving. You need to improve truly. You don't need to discuss how you are changing. You need to change. The change you seek in 2026 does not come from luck, not from your environment, not from other people. It comes from what you train on a daily basis. That is why Stoicism emphasizes one thing: you are stronger when you operate from within, not from external conditions. And once you understand how to command the inside, the outside world eventually shifts with it. As you leave this video, choose one principle to implement today. Not all 7, just one clear enough that you can do it without inspiration, one small enough that you can maintain it, and strong enough to create a domino effect for the rest of the year. It could be staying silent for 10 extra seconds before reacting. It may be setting a boundary with someone who drains you. It may be as simple as sitting still for 2 minutes every morning to bring your mind back into order. No action is too small if you repeat it long enough. You do not need anyone to give you strength. You already have it. You need to train it every day. Comment on the rule you choose to practice today. Share this video with someone who needs clarity to move forward, and subscribe to Stoic Life so each day you receive one more principle to strengthen your mind and bring more order into your life.